I understand that next level thinking, but then it's like, it's not about them. What are you doing? It's not about,
Yeah.
but that's what these things, they're built, the systems are going to be built on this
Mhm.
external view, which makes no sense if she's the main character, but if she's Black, yes, it does, to change it that way. And then wait, what was the next part? So it was like,
Was it about the other demographic?
no, but yes. Oh, and the Black woman still gives the shirt off her back because she knows how hard it is. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know. Like we skipped
Yeah.
that whole part where like she good. What happened sorry, that though, because that's the pet to threat. That's like, but it's like
Mhm.
in reverse. It's just, that's what happens when you work within the system and try to make it. It's like the DEIify something that was written by a white man.
Well, with the very strong colors, though, I feel like color is a very important part of resistance. Um, Also, I just saw Wicked this weekend, and I want to know your
On
thoughts, and
theme.
I really want to discuss that. Because yes, very on theme of color. To me, it seemed very much just like a scathing critique of whiteness. Um,
Yeah, yeah. My so I've never seen Wicked. Right? I've heard the songs, the main songs, the popular and the gravity, right? Um, and I am hmm. So historically, though, it's been white people playing all the roles, right? So I think the new awareness, I wonder how much of it is like, oh, once you ring the bell, you can't unring it. So you start to see these things. I mean, and
yeah,
all oppression does boil down to mostly anti Blackness, right? So then I'm like, so there's that. I just don't know much about the original. It just always seemed like a white people thing.
so yeah, so I hadn't seen the play. I had only read the book, and I don't even think I finished the whole book. But
Didn't even
my
know it was a book.
impression was that in the book it was supposed to be about race as well,
Hmm.
the way that it is written about. And then of course it was, so in this, so I thought there was a couple things interesting, right? Which was like you said, like it rewrites the story. As soon as you cast a Black woman in that, it like
Mm.
everyone's like, oh, this was always supposed to be about race, right? When traditionally this has been seen more about like gender and other things.
Mm.
Um, but to me, I felt like, yeah, as soon as you cast it like that, it really, I mean, Ariana Grande played like performative whiteness. There's this one scene where to protest what's happening to, oppressed, marginalized animals in this case, that she's like, I'm gonna change my name. And it was so Blue Bracelet energy. I mean, there's this great moment, which is of course in the song, when they're both singing about how much they hate each other, and she's like, my roommate is impossible to explain, Ariana Grande, she's so like difficult and blah 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 and hard to pin down. And then Cynthia Erivo goes, blonde.
Mm.
The whole theater just kind of like cracked up. And I was like, oh, I want to see what Tressie Kata McMillan has to say about this. She's the one writing a book called Blonde, Black Woman
Right.
Fights for
Yeah. Yeah.
Time, about the politics of beauty. And I was reading that today, and she did not disappoint. And of course, she calls out the fact that Ariana Grande is very, very thin, like so thin.
Yeah.
And as we get
Yeah.
to a time of women demanding rights again, we're going to start having like thinness aesthetic pushed onto us.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of that. And especially, with Ozempic was, a thing, and just watching bodies in general is going to lead to harm, it feels like. And like without deconstructing anti-blackness, you don't fully address anything, in my opinion. Like, so Wicked has always been about discrimination or whatever. But now that a Black woman is in it, it's like, okay, also this,
Yeah.
if you come from a white centered point of view. But it seems like that's kind of what has always, like, you find your marginalization and then you center yourself in the thing anyway. So I feel like I've seen a lot of white women going, oh, this I identify so strongly with the green character. Because we know what it's like to be different. Everyone, because we're in a society not built for us, none of us. Um, and I just feel like I get also like Barbie. I didn't go see Barbie either
Um,
because I was just kind of like,
and even, in this one article I read about, like, for critics' responses to it, they were talking about, like, even so the other side, right? Like, people have been being like, oh, the green face and the orange face, like, they're the same, right? And it's almost like anyone can read it as almost like the Matrix, right? Like, the people who wrote the Matrix have come out and said, we are trans, and this was an allegory about trans people. And yet, being
mm,
red pilled remains kind of like how we talk about someone going over to the, alt right, hyper masculine, etc. Also,
Right.
the cult that I grew up in loved the Matrix, right? And saw it as an allegory for them rescuing people from the world. So, I mean, in that way, it's almost like, well, good art is supposed to do that, and you're supposed to, like, so for me
mhm,
watching it as a white woman, right, it was very much, it's a hyperbolic whiteness. And,
yeah,
Bowen Yang from Saturday Night Live is there
hmm
to play the yes girl, and like really helped make fun of kind of like liberal white women is what it was
hmm
doing.
yeah,
And there's all this discussion, like, did Ariana Grande even kind of know, um by the time she was put in as best supporting actress for the Oscar to Cynthia Erivo's dress, best actress,
oh,
right? They're both up for Oscars, but she's the supporting actress, so like there, that is clear. um, but yeah, I
okay,
saw it very much as like, well, you're gonna identify with the main character. So as a white woman, if you let yourself identify with the green character, it casts the whiteness into kind of such problematic relief for me that it was like
hmm
an interesting, I don't know if I'm getting right, like what I'm supposed
yeah,
to be
yeah,
getting out of it, but I was like, yeah, this to me is such a kind of interesting critique of whiteness and the damaging effects. And, part of the story is this, Elphaba, who's always wanted to not be green, then starts to see these animals being oppressed and
mm,
then decides, she's going to support the oppressed people. And it was like when we have talked about, right, like Black women are
yeah,
just not marginalizing anyone. Like they are the movement, they are standing up for people. It made it
right,
very good. And it is noticeable that they have her in many scenes where she doesn't appear to be green. She just looks like an African American woman. Um, so,
interesting,
like, you see how they're doing some of these things.
yeah. But so us okay. So here's the next level of uh I would almost call this in-house conversation in terms of within Black culture. Cynthia Erivo is not American, right? She is not from here, and maybe has some kind of history of Black English people and Black American people. We're not the same people. I thought we were, but just like how I thought we were all the same people until you start interacting and you start hearing things people are saying is there's, they say things about Black Americans and they are taught negative things about us. Um, and then she played Harriet Tubman. So there's people hold on to some stuff, but I've been hearing her performance is so good. People are willing to, random internet TikTokers, Black women are like, we're willing to let some of that stuff go if you can act right. Because she also, I think, played Aretha Franklin. And it's like, Black people in England can do the types of roles and get the types of education to then like come over here and do stuff. I don't know. It's just when you watch things as a Black woman, it's never just like, oh, nice. I'm like, who wrote it? Were they Black? Because if it's fair, because if it was for to represent Blackness, I didn't know until now.
It was definitely written by a white man. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure.
Right, kind of like how Blackbird was supposed to be like for Black women. It was Paul McCartney thing. I didn't know that till Beyonce did it, and people said that. So it's like it could be interesting. I think it's good. I love art. I think art is interesting. It's just like going in to see stuff. I'm always I'm always just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, but and why? And like, are you going to leave now and be like, I did my job? Not you. I don't think you guys are in the work, but I think of white women who are like, my due diligence is going to see this movie and thinking about it. Must be hard to. I never really said I don't want to be Black. I just wanted easier hair, but I never. But I just don't like green. We're already giving into the green people, purple people. You know how people like to say, like, you can be green, yellow, blah, blah. Like, so yeah, I mean,
There's a
have fun.
moment
No.
where after they've first been shocked with her, then they walk away and Bo and Yang's like, I don't even see color. So they made like this very, I feel like, direct
But
allusion.
there's one thing I have a note because I Daniela, I want to save you from the theater kids um coming into your comments because Cynthia Erivo did something very specific with the role. I have seen nearly every interview that they have done because I am the intended audience. I am a theater kid. I have been since high school. I see every musical that comes out, all of that. So there is a line in the music that they weren't going to change, talking about when I meet the wizard, maybe he'll consider making me not green anymore. That was there. Cynthia very specifically played the role, and I think it was pretty clear that she did not hate her color. She was very comfortable with how she looked. She was annoyed at how everybody else couldn't get over it. It was very distinctly a them problem. And if she could have flipped a switch, it would be to fix their opinion, not her skin. And that,
Yeah.
I liked seeing that. And then there's also something in there about allyship, because at some point she realizes that she is not the one being most targeted in this scenario. And she sets aside whatever little bit of privilege she has to help the more targeted demographic.
Haley, you're not selling me. I gotta tell you, not you or
I'm not
but
trying to sell
no, no,
you.
no,
I'm
no.
just
I know you aren't. I know you aren't. I'm just as I'm listening to this though, it's like, yes, I get that. It's
yeah.
like that's like the second level of it makes sense that that's what they're doing. Okay, so it's like the second level of it is, oh no, everybody else needs to think better of me and like be better at whatever, and like
hmm
everybody else is the thing, right? And I get that. I understand that next level thinking, but then it's like it's not about them. What are you doing? It's not like like
Yeah.
but that's what these things they're built. The systems are going to be built on this
hmm
external view, which makes no sense if she's the main character, but if she's Black, yes, it does. To change it that way, and then to have, and then wait, what was the next part? So it was like they
Was it about the other demographic?
no, but yes. Oh, and the Black woman still gives the shirt off her back because she knows how hard it is. Yeah, I
hmm
know. Like we skipped
Yeah.
that whole part where like she good. What happened to sorry, that though, because that's the pet to threat. That's like, but it's like
hmm
in reverse. But you, it's just, that's what happens when you work within the system and try to make it, it's like the DEIify something that was written by a white man. It's like, I
Hmm.
appreciate and I like the stylistic choices. I love the love that is happening within Black women who are going to see it and love all the stuff. I want to hold that nuance. I don't want it to ever sound like I think good, bad, right, wrong, anything. I
Yeah.
just am interacting with the information. And it's like, the messages are always, she would give the shirt off her back. We still get a lot of that messaging for feminine energy and goodness, um, and the sacrificing and the suffering and the like, look at how good she is. She even helped. Oh my God. What if she took a break?
Yeah.
What, you know,
Well,
geez.
and like of course I live in Maryland, but I was very happy to see just like so many young Black girls there with their moms, right? Just like so excited to see the
Yes, yes, yes,
movie.
yes.
But then I was also so sad to report that our little white girls walked away wanting the Ariana Grande doll, right? Like the
Oh,
message
see?
at that level is still not getting through. And I relate
Yeah.
to that when you're saying the critiquing of the system, right? It's like, yeah, we're critiquing the system, but we still gave the super skinny, rich, privileged, beautiful, traditionally beautiful blonde girl the main role in a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Because I kept
And she
being like,
sings
I don't know how I
beautifully.
feel about this. Like, I like the critique, but then also she's a Disney princess now, and then there's also that thing, like you said, like when you make it, like in these critiques, they were talking about the fact that the way the play is written, it's already she hates her green skin, right? Which is again, it's coming from being
Hmm.
written by a white man, and there's
Right.
only so much you can do with that, right? Where it's like, I like you call it the DEIing of the concept. It's like
Yeah, I
a
don't know
white
where,
man
yeah.
saying, how would a Black girl or a green girl in this context, feel?
Right. And what is my aspiration for this little Black girl? How do I wish she could feel? And it's like you. And like, I don't want to feel like you because you still look at you through my lens. I'm not looking at you and how you feel about my green skin. That was never the point. It's not, yes, being Black is harder around white people, but my wish, if I get a bunch of wishes, it's not that white people, anything. Sorry, I don't want to yell at you. Anything. You know what I mean? But in the white centered vision of a Black experience, it is suffering and serving and avoiding, and yes, we do those things, but that's just part of living. That's not the center of our being. It's maneuvering around you to find our joy and passions and purposes and community. You aren't the thing and never have been. And the popular girls aren't happy type of thing, right? Like that's not, um that's just, the communities that need the most are the ones who are so busy helping each other out and keeping each other from starving to notice a bunch of the good works of everybody giving back and all of that stuff, who are just miserable. And um yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's
definitely don't begrudge people their movies and their music, and like what brings us comfort and happiness is what brings us comfort and happiness. But it does show like you can't get a Black woman's perspective from anybody but a Black woman. There is no, commentary that anybody is gonna make that replaces just listening. And like, that's tough because it's not going to be in the books you're already reading and the music you're already hearing, because it's so hard for us to get past the white man who wants to go, and then what do the white people yell at them? Do they throw things at them? It's like, no, Black people just live. Yeah, used to have our own shows.
It's even interesting. I don't know the whole debate, but I know that like the way they did the cover of the live action, you could see Cynthia Erivo's whole face, like the hat is high on her head, and then
Mm-hmm.
Ariana is whispering in her ear, right? And then there was a fan who edited it to make it more like the original, which was the hat is almost completely covering her face. You just see like the bottom. So
Mm.
kind of just see that she's green. and then even the other woman is covered too. So it's more mysterious, right? And so this was the fan complaint. And
Yeah.
that's how Cynthia Erivo reacted. I mean, she said it was the most like offensive thing she had seen, and um,
See, and that's that Black English stuff.
there
You
was
know?
there was hyperbole in that too. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know that she obviously knows the background of the show and the film and whatever, but that change meant something different, much different to her than the person who
Wow.
did the change.
It's weird because I had no idea. I feel so differently about it now, but like in a more interested, but also concerned for the white people in that y'all didn't know this was about being black. Because if I had seen that first one and she was green, and also don't make this, sorry, but I know you love the songs. I don't think, wait, this is, but white people are playing. So Idina Menzel was doing blackface, essentially. Not exactly. I know white people get very nervous when I say things like that. I gotta tell you, these are not the worst, most offensive things that have ever gotta. They're not great, but they just show lack of awareness. It's not really hurting anybody's hearts. Wow. Okay. All right.
It's even like
Oh.
there's another thing in the movie. It's not the same, but they're instead of making the Munchkins like people with dwarfism, they made them like just extra short, spunky, redheaded people, kind of like if leprechauns were real people. And so now there's been criticism of this, like from people with dwarfism or just from very short adults, and being like, are you erasing us? Like, what's going on? Are you, like it's interesting, and it was directed by an Asian man, I believe. Um, and it's
Only
always,
a man would think I can figure this out.
it's supposed to be about fascism, right? Like it's supposed to be about rejecting fascism, but it got layered in with all of these like very interesting choices that I think, to your point, like it's impossible to think of all the things you're layering onto this.
When you decide to remake something that would that was designed by a white man from the past, okay? That's a choice. That's gonna have problems in it, and not even due to the fault of that. Y'all put the stuff out, okay? And you're like, okay, we'll work around this stuff. It wasn't,
Yeah.
you don't have to do this. None of this had to be done. No one needed this. I know people are, we make do, we have fun. Because I just hear people being upset about it. But like, you enjoyed the songs then, we can keep singing them, you can get something for it. But to make millions of dollars. But reality is, this originated as a white man who said, I'm gonna make.
Yeah, I'm gonna make money off this other white man's work.
And
um
and and you know who's gonna go see it? White and gay white. And they're gonna go and they're gonna feel seen, and they sing and they get to be a black girl and feel the pain of what it's like, but then the acceptance, and then but not really say that this is about blackness, because that's not said. I never knew that till today. And I understood that people were saying, oh, you don't see that. It's about it. She's great. Lost the plot, literally lost the plot, picked it back up and said, but kinda cute, but not offensive, but it's about racism. But a white man made it, but we're just gonna have but Asian man, that's minority enough for us. And there's not gonna be any problems with having 0 black American women on the cover of this. One used to play black accent, one used to say black American something. And yeah, we take.
it's important.
Ooh.
uh, the choice aspect here too is something that a lot of like white Americans don't think about. I remember
The
this.
comfort in making
I
the choice.
Yeah.
Comfort, you
I mean, I
know?
remember this conversation when Frozen came out, right? And people were like, literally another white blonde princess. And then, of course, the white people got very upset and started on about how in that part of the world, people are white. And her
Science.
response was, yes, but why did you have to choose?
You didn't have
We've
to do
not
that.
had one African princess yet, right? We've had one African American and she spent 90% of her time as a frog, but we haven't had one African princess yet, but you're setting another one in a white land. And then Frozen 2, Frozen 2 like really tried to answer to that because they brought the indigenous people into the story, and it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like, yeah, but you already made the first choice to center this story in whiteness in the first place, or to tell
Right.
another story. I keep joking that like we just don't need another white Disney princess ever. Like we've got all of them. Just
We're
like
good. We barely
there's
even
so
need
many other
princesses.
stories to tell.
Can't we just have some people?
Moana was
Because,
great.
right,
And children's stories don't need to have love interest. Like they're children's
they
stories,
don't need a job. They
So
don't need a job. they can just be a they could just be a kid with a story. It's fine. They don't need aspirational career life placements and positionality towards other men. Like,
what's so interesting about this,
it
because
just want
what
to
you were
fly.
saying, it's like who makes the decisions, right? So when I've written a children's book, still going to put it out as an adult coloring book though. But when I was in the process of working on it, and I said to my agent one day, because I was talking with him, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to go read the children's book at this school because I'm teaching, 12 kids fiber arts. And he goes, oh, I mean, that's great if you want to, but just so you know, I have no interest in what the children think because children don't buy children's books. And that was
Wow.
like such an interesting piece of insight for what we have. Right, like I don't know if you ever seen the
Mm-hmm.
movie Big, where he gets,
Yeah.
he wishes it, right? And it's like all
Yeah.
of a sudden you have a child telling you what children want, but like we are trying to sell kids books to grown-ups, and it's not
That's
it's not
capitalism.
taken into, yeah, it's not taken into like what are the kids gonna like, right? If you give a mouse a cookie is marketed toward this genre of parent.
Oh gosh. Wait, that's a bad book. Hold on. If you give a mouse a cookie, don't spoil your kids. Oh no, another one. This is the episode where all of a sudden we hate all the good things, but not even the good things. It's
No,
just
but
we don't hate them.
I think it's looking deep,
Yeah,
right? So like how I am feeling right now, loved the
it's the
movie.
why.
It's fine. I don't feel like you're saying that I can't love the movie. I also
Okay, good.
feel like you showed me all of these additional things that I didn't see the first time. It was Nabokov, another white man who's famous for writing Lolita and also for being RBG's literature teacher.
Oh
Anyway,
gosh.
but we still teach him in the canon. Um, by the way, someone commented on our last video about weaponized literacy. It was a black man who commented, and he said, I mean, they call the list of books we're all supposed to read a canon. Weaponized literacy.
Whoa.
I was
I mean, I
like,
didn't
that's
even know.
so good. But anyways,
Wow.
so Nabokov says, which we all have to like study in literature school, that it takes 5 times of reading something to get it, right? That like the first time you're
Huh.
just understanding the story, right? So like even for me, because I've already
Yeah.
read Wicked, like I already have more insight going in than somebody who's like cold, right? Because I don't have to be getting the story, or even the
Yeah.
reason we love these stories from another perspective is like we already have the insight, right? But the second time you go through, people usually watch something 2 or 3 times. So they'll get this, right? Where you're like getting all these
Yeah.
little pieces. And like, it's funny because I related to that about literature because that's how we were raised in the cult, that like every time you read the Bible, you get a new thing, you
See, I
know.
never got that with reading, but I feel that with everything else. So why wouldn't it be with reading?
I don't know. I get it with reading where it's like I get what I'm getting out of it at the time. Like whatever the way my brain works is like whatever I'm thinking about, like that's what I'm gonna get out of. The
Mhm.
way I interacted with Wicked was 100% because of doing these conversations with you all the time, and
Mhm.
this is what I have on my head in my mind. So if I'm going to see something that's played by a Black woman and a white woman, like this is how I'm gonna
I
see it
mean,
in a certain way, right?
yeah,
Now
of
the next
course.
time I go back and see it, now that we've had these conversations, right, I'm gonna like see all
You're
these
gonna have like
other
me
elements.
back here, like, wow.
Oh yeah, you're back in my head a lot, and I've quoted you on Undoctrinate several videos already.
I mean, if that's a great nod to my word too, because if you like it and it's undoctrinate, like, all
Yeah,
right, it works. It's
I'm
perfect.
quoting you in the book. You're you know,
I'm
this is
so cool.
work.
I think of
I
it
actually
similarly.
love crediting other people for their words and concepts because it makes me seem like I'm super smart and I remember like every single person's word and concept.
I think there's something to that as well that we could take away. That's definitely not in whiteness, because unless it's to, name drop and to show hierarchy, there's so much value in saying, I learned this from this person, this from this person. I'm sharing resources with you in real time that you can go deep dive in. Like, that has so much value. And having that kind of impact on someone there's no dollars associated that could replace that feeling. And I think we just should hold on to those things. And even like knowing that, I'm not saying boo anyone who talks about, sees and likes this movie, anything like that, because that's always, in the land of TikTok where there's no nuance. That's what everybody thinks I'm saying. I watch Game of Thrones so many times. I rewatch it all the time. I think the messaging in it is terrible. First time I just did it cuz, and then I went to business school and everyone knew it, and I was so glad I had some like white people currency to talk to them about. It was like the best thing I could have ever done. And now I watch it and go like, "Oh my gosh, white women don't even understand how Daenerys, the queen, the dragon queen, is really
Well, I mean, that's what's
so
so
bad."
funny. How they're like, he just came out of nowhere and turned her into the bad person. Like, no, they didn't. It was that. It's on my list. I need to do a culty review of like the whole thing. I
Oh
just
my
did
god.
I just did Willy Wonka, like my culty review of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And
Oh,
like,
I can't
I
wait.
need to
I have
do
so much on
Game
Game of
of
Thrones and Daenerys.
um, but it's
Willy
like
Wonka. Willy.
it's a good example. It's a good reminder also to all of our listeners, like nobody but a black woman can give you a black woman's perspective. I just think that answer is very important. Like nobody can give you another perspective that they don't have. And when you try, that's why they always say write what you know. But of course, if you're going to write an interesting book of any kind, you want to give like nods to other perspectives. But I mean, it's a good reminder for me as a writer. So
Mhm.
first of all, like I've written a book all about whiteness, right? Like I wanted to write about race, but so I
Yep.
wrote about whiteness.
Right. Exactly.
Um, and I remember at one point in my journey, my friend who's white but grew up in New Jersey telling me, like, Daniela, no matter how many books you read, you do not have the perspective of a black woman. And I was like, but she's like, no, I don't care. I don't care that you've read Morrisville. Like, I don't care that you've read everything on the anti-racist book list because it's like you're bringing a different lived experience to the thing.
Right. And
Um,
you have a whole bunch as yourself, but white supremacists, like something in there tells you can also take this objective view of other people's lives and just drop in, or like these are just different versions of you, but with black skin. Like,
yeah. Well, and it's like
No.
even this thing we talked about in earlier episodes that I think this good tip for white women on this journey is like when they say believe black women, that's just a flip you can switch. Or black people, that's just a switch you can flip. You know, you can just be like, okay. You know, I don't have to be like, well, Cynthia Erivo or but I just be like, oh, if you're saying black women think she's problematic, huh. Believe. Right?
Right.
And,
Right.
and there's so much of this in all the identity politics, you know, like, oh my God, I made a video today, literally a man literally left the comment saying, well, I think you're lying because I was a Marine and there was no women in combat when I was there. Like, the best-selling book published. You can Google me. But it doesn't matter, right? He's like, I
Doesn't
didn't see
matter.
it. It's not real.
And that's the basic kind of through line a lot of the time in my comment sections. Yeah, it's not as basic as that. But essentially questioning, white people or every individual white person gets to decide if they believe this story. Every story they hear, it is now upon them to decide whether this is true. It's giving like, oh, I'm deciding whether you're sick and because you take sick days and you're just gonna make excuses. It, like
They're
you're overseeing
like,
everybody.
I think we're deciding, I should say, whether it's true and whether we
Yeah.
believe that you're a good representation of Black women.
Right. And there's this thing about credibility that white people just need and hold on to and, throw people in the good or bad list. And are they credible? And have they done something problematic? Then it doesn't matter anything they say that they've done or do in the future. See, even with this, Cynthia Erivo, she has problematic past. Did black women say, no, we're going to go boycott that movie? Did we cancel her? No. We still want to enjoy something that is actually supposed to say something positive about us. And we gonna just see what happens. If it's good, we're gonna take it. But it's not about policing what everyone thinks about everyone all the time and then moving. They don't disappear because they did something you disagreed with. So it's holding actual space for new thoughts and just evolved. So I like the idea of seeing it multiple times and seeing different things. And you can use this as a conversation about whiteness and not about blackness, not about discrimination against black people. This can be about how this white man, how did we just go decades of singing this song? No one talked about how it was about racism or whatever. I don't know if the song's about whatever song, we just, I mean, often we use entertainment and we don't realize what we are engaging in when we're singing in a certain song. I've noticed that even now when I sing songs I grew up with as a kid, I'm just like, what are these words? This is terrible. But I still enjoyed listening to the song. And now I can think a little bit more about the archetypes of my childhood and what has that impacted on me today. It's an opportunity. I'll just say that.
Even
Well,
understanding, right? So, like, I
yeah,
found out that eeny, meeny, miny, mo comes from a very, very bad place. It used to not say catch a tiger,
yeah,
right? And so
yeah.
I am not we are not fans of when that one comes home, and we stick pretty hard to bubblegum. But also it's like, no, you're not a horrible miserable person if like you grew up saying that or if whatever, but
Right.
like, but also if you think it doesn't matter at all that something has like an awful like that's one of the things that I encounter on a day-to-day basis that is really stands
Hmm.
out to me and is problematic to me, right? Because like I come from the cult that had maybe the second best whitewashing story of all time other than the Mormons, right? Like in the
Mm-hmm.
80s, we're in Time magazine, harem photo, right? Prophet surrounded by 13 scantily clad women, sex cult, religious prostitutes, all of this in Time magazine. And
Okay.
then in the 90s, we performed twice at the White House and once for the president of Brazil, right? And then I've been in the military where, because they've never dealt with the history of rape and war, they still have a problem with raping all their soldiers, right? And so it's like, I'm very skeptical of anything, for art, right? If you take a piece of art from back then and you bring it into modern day without like truly excavating what is at the basis of this, you're gonna like, there's the potential to make things problematic or make things that aren't, I love it when people are like, that's not what they intended. I'm like, it's called death of the author. Doesn't matter. Once you make it a product, people can have any interaction with it that they want.
Right.
And
Yeah.
obviously people are gonna have different interactions with it than you thought. Um, but yeah, I don't ever believe in like the whitewash over top without like going deep to get into like why this was rotten in the first place, basically.
Hey, and that has to do with, the right to comfort as well. People are just like, well, I don't want to think this much about everything. And I'm like, yeah, neither do I. Well, but here we are. Okay. We live here where everything they do for reasons, and it's not based in a better humanity. It's based in more money
Mm-hmm.
and thoughts being shut down more often. But
I get this one all the time because people will be like, well, if that's your definition of cult, then everything's a cult. And they like, I think they expect me to just like sit down and apologize and be like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. And I'm just like, I just respond with, yeah, I'm writing a book called The Culting of America.
yeah,
And you just see them go like, aren't you going to now hand me something to make me feel better?
right. Well,
Um,
people are gonna always people tell me all the time I'm creating racism. I'm the one being racism. Uh because and people just that I hate white women despite looking at a page in which I actively but that's what these culty like fear tactic things will do is have you think like
yeah. If you
I'm
hate
actively
people,
seeking out white women to listen to me say stuff about them because I hate them.
women, why would you have dedicated your life to helping them?
I'm
Like,
not, but they don't even like they it's that quick aversion and I want white women who are listening to see that and understand that that's culty, but what we're contending with here is I have only tried to help for and this is free to them in between like cat and dog videos and they come on they say I hate people like but they're commenting to me. They're coming to me to let me know how much they dislike me. So we're just dealing with completely different experiences. Um, but also to just remember there's irrationality all up and down there. Like it's never going to make sense. And it's designed to have me react in what way? When they tell me I'm obsessed with white women, what do they want from me after that?
yeah.
To say no? Or like yes? Or, it's this just,
it's I don't know what to name it, but I get this from the perspective of when people like, every American thinks they know what a cult is. Okay, right? So they have this opinion, and then I'm like, no, actually, XYZ, this is nuance, this is this. And then they're
yeah.
like, grumble, grumble, grumble. You're just so obsessed with cults that you call everything a cult. And today on my threads, I made this analogy. I'm like, this is like, because I said religion isn't a cult, right? Like it can be used by cults, but it's not
Right.
in itself a cult. And there people are getting all mad, and I'm like, this is like getting mad at a hand surgeon for saying that thumbs are not hands,
Right.
even though like hands usually have thumbs, and then getting mad and like grumbling that the hand surgeon is just obsessed with hands and sees everything as a hand, like you
Yeah.
use someone's amount of expertise against them. I've only seen it done to women, and I've only seen it done like when our topics are negative. Like I was asking people at some point last week, I was like, do you get mad at cancer, the people that research the cause of cancer, for not being the same people that research the cure of cancer? But then even as I was asking this question, I was like, I bet they do. I bet people that research the cause of cancer get horrible things said to them. I mean, weathermen
Hmm.
regularly get death threats.
And you know who's doing that.
If you
You
tell
know
me,
it's not us.
if you tell people that they are going to have a bad day and then you don't offer them like an emotional lollipop afterwards, they somehow like intrinsically hate you. And this is why the whole Cassandra effect thing happens. And I'm at the point in
Um,
my life where it's just kind of fun for me to just be like, no, I'm just here to point out the problem and talk all about it and then leave you to have those uncomfortable thoughts. You know, people were telling me that the way I talk about cult mentality is too complicated for cult members. And I was like, oh, honey, I'm not talking to cult members. I'm talking to you. You're the one that has to go get your cult family. You know, like,
yeah. And also the dehumanizing of cult members to say that they wouldn't, I mean, but I just says that to me says where they are in understanding their responsibility here or what they could do or how they see themselves in relation to cult members. I think you might be one if you talk about them like that. If you're like,
secret, right?
yeah, they won't understand this. It's like how people talk about just, you don't have to, that doesn't equate. Cult members
It's the othering.
aren't
As
dumb
soon as
or
you
whatever.
say, oh, someone's in a cult, then you don't have to think of them as a human. They're just brainwashed. And I think there's a reason why we were so quick to jump to that conclusion after a huge amount of the cult victims were Black. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's two interesting things I find about Black cults is that nobody talks about Move of God, which was a Black cult that was firebombed by the government in New York City. And we never hear about that, even though we hear about Waco
Move was
all
a
the
cult?
time. It's called the Move. It's taught as a cult. Um, like it's in
Interesting.
cult
I'm gonna that's interesting. That's not because why would they bomb them? Because that's the one that Philadelphia, the police bombed them.
thought it was New York, but it could be Philadelphia. Yeah,
Philadelphia, I believe.
John of God, I think, or John of Africa was what he called himself. I have it about it in a couple
Yeah,
of notes.
I don't know much about Move the group, but I do know some. I don't know. They don't. I've never heard of them as a cult, but I just heard it as some like probably fed people. Uh,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
they were bombed.
I often say I think the difference between what we call a gang and what we call a cult is just race and class.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I have a whole list of white gangs I want to talk about at some point. I think I talked about that and used it. No, who was it? Oh, maybe my other white friend. I was gonna say, told me to add the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders too. I just remembered it wasn't you. But
we
the
need we need to get you a T-shirt that says "I'm not racist. I have white friends. Like I have a white friend."
because I mean, in reality, you have a perspective I could not have, right? I understand I'm a white woman whisperer in terms of I can talk to you about the Black woman experience of a white woman in general. I don't know what it is like to be a white woman. As far as, I mean, you guys talk about all the time, every book, movie, whatever. I understand as much as you want me to understand, but like there are still going to be things where I'm going to go, whoa, I never realized you didn't do this or you
I have
something.
I have a thing that I
There's
can do
value.
that I used to think I would do self-consciously, which is just like just move your voice into a higher register and you just basically white girl yourself down, like infantilize yourself when you're in an uncomfortable situation
Yeah.
and things go better for you. And it would go better for me than it would go for Haley because I'm also a small person, you know, but it's definitely playing into this white thing. And I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen it and experienced it at you a bunch of times, Rebecca.
Yeah. And you see it and I think when I started watching these, the Bama Rush girls and like the individuals and just hearing how they were all speaking in this same way, but not just like, oh, the girls are so sweet and like this, and not just vocal fry. It just, and I wonder honestly if it actually, I would love for white women to start questioning, does this actually make the situation better or not? Because I'm taught to think that making this man uncomfortable. Now, obviously, nuance exists here as well. Making these men uncomfortable will make me in danger, but
Right.
making them uncomfortable when there are other people around might actually make you safer. But it takes a little bit of stopping and pausing and working against what you've been taught in terms of the silence is safety, because silence is not safety. But it has been ingrained that way. Laugh when he makes you uncomfortable. I think you're better off not. But it feels that things go smoother because then you feel in control. You don't know what happens if you don't laugh. You don't know what he's gonna
Yeah.
do, but neither does he.
And it's called fawning, right? And it's the one people leaves out when they're like fight or flee,
Yeah,
right? Well, it's two. There's four. It's fight, freeze, fawn, or flee.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And fawning is just making yourself so pleasing to them. I mean, honestly, when I found out that I was, autistic and ADHD, I felt just like released. I was like, oh, great. This whole time I've been a people pleaser and people haven't been liking me anyways. This is amazing. And now
Yeah.
I have this whole genre of TikToks that people are now calling flex talks when I call them bro shutdowns when they
Mm-hmm.
just come at me and I just am very not nice. And man, what I've learned is like other women need these. Like other women need to see women just like not back the F down. Like this one guy was like, oh, so are you the spokesperson of the 101st, which was like the most famous unit in the military? And I was like, actually, yes. And I
Sure.
was all of my credentials and the book I wrote about it and all this stuff. And people just like watch this and they're like, I just needed this for my day. Like I just needed
Mm-hmm.
this to like go about. And I'm still not this good in person. And I still feel like I'm taking up space at the meat counter or
Oh, do you,
at parallel parking. But I'm
listen.
better.
Oh, I got the parallel parking down. I'm from North Jersey. Oh, but I had to park on the left side, the right side, But so now, you kind of understand also why I made my page speaking to white women the way I speak to white women and why it's so important for me not to comfort and not to say, well, like, not all. And Black women deserve to see a Black woman say exactly what we meant to say or wanted to say, rather, at work, or what we wish we could relay to white women safely. Uh, and a lot of it is we don't care. So it's not necessarily going to be a flex. It's very different, obviously, what you're going to point at men and women. And it's saying, word, shut up. Most of it is be quiet. And I didn't realize how much of it was going to be, but when a Black woman tells me she loves what I'm doing, I could not measure that. And so it's when white women are like, we don't deserve this. I'm like, and I've said this here. It's like, maybe not, but Black women do. And it's not necessarily a shutdown at this point in it. It took a while. I think at the beginning there was a lot more of me clapping back and things. And I got white women enough together to see kind of where it goes and what my issues are and how I deal with it. And now it's kind of like I formed my own little security where they do it for me.
That's right. And then them shutting you down. So for me, like when, all these women are getting like emotionally fed from my shutdown videos. And then when a man
Mm-hmm.
steps in and was like, no, I was in that division. She can say whatever she wants. Like when they're
Mm-hmm.
on my side, it
Yep.
feels so good, and I now try to be aware of that, right? Like what you're talking about. We talked about this last
Yeah.
week, I think, right? Just being
Yeah.
like, shh, listen.
The shush and shush. Yes. Yes. Because you have no idea the power and just like, I went live again since then. And what that same mod came back and
Back and
she's,
she's
I got so excited to see her come in. And it's really, I don't really know her, never really seen her, but that relationship. And she said, oh, your reaction always melts my heart. I don't even realize what's happening. I'm just you can build such strong community in ways you wouldn't know until you just start doing stuff. You know, you start shutting them down and you see what people start to say, and
Yeah.
people standing up for you, especially as autistic girlies growing up, having people stand up for us, especially me having Black women come in and be like, oh, they're not going to do this to you.
Yeah.
We remember, like, they, oh, and they show up every time.
And, I saw this meme that said, white women stop worrying about Black women knowing that you're safe to be around and start worrying about other white people knowing that you're not safe to be a racist around.
Boom. That's
And
it.
that, I think, is just like a really good for everyone, because then turning to what you're talking about, right? Like when a Black woman is excited to see you, does know that you're safe, or compliments you on your outfit, like it is the best feeling, bar none, because it's so genuine. And like that,
Absolutely. You have earned
to
that.
me, that's the reward for me. Okay, it's like that reaction that you're talking about, like
Mm-hmm.
that, when I think when we're doing the work, like that's what it is. That's what I say, right? Like you have less like false friendships and then more just like true connection with
Yeah, and then which
people that are
builds,
still around.
they'll build back into you. It's just a much, the return on investment is there. I can feed off of one good comment, and you know, we tend to say, oh, the negative sticks so much more. Not when not here, not when you know it. And a Black woman said, I feel so safe in this space. I oh, what, in my life, that, in a White Woman Whisperer live, I built that. You know, I built that up because in the beginning, all I would get, what does this name mean? And when we used to play drinking games in my lives, every time someone asked, what does your name mean? Those who knew, we'd drink, and then someone would just do the drink. And that just built community right there. It didn't have to be drink, you know, it was water, it was whatever. But just building that, even that, you can't buy that. And that's what's going to fulfill you and keep you going when it's tough or when you don't know what's going on. It's like, oh, okay. Okay. But that's the power of Black womanhood. It's not, well, you know, I wish I wasn't. You know, I mean, you hear how I talk about Black women and what it gives to me. To imagine that some white man would be like, I'm gonna help Black women out here, and I'm gonna write a story to really depict what it's like to like know a white woman. I guess I don't know, and she's gonna help me, but it turns out, you know, we got so much other stuff going on. There's also a man writing women's stories.
Yeah. And I mean, also in the end of the story, I think it's poignant that we know the whole time that no matter how much she accepts her, like she's gonna betray her in the end. She's gonna choose whiteness. She's gonna choose the wizard. She's gonna let her be demonized as, because if you think about it, part of the point of Wicked is asking the question, can we thrust wickedness onto someone? Right? Can you just say the good person
Mhm.
is the bad person enough that then they say, fine? And I felt like it was this kind of like, fine, you want to see an angry Black woman? I'll show you. There could be like this analogy to it, which of course you all have
Yeah,
talked about. But I thought,
yeah.
to me, what was poignant watching it as a white was that we know, because she's Glinda the Good in the end. Like, we know that not only is she going to choose the wizard, she's going to take over after he's gone. They make that clear in this show too, right? So she's gonna. So to me, it was almost like, I don't know. I also felt bad for the Black girls that were in there, because it's like, well, she's the star of the show, but we know that she's going to be beat by this little white girl named Dorothy, who.
Oh, right, because then they go on to be, and she melts, right? That's her. She melts.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not the same witch. Okay, the just same
No,
hat.
no, that is. She melts her.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know they're different. I know they're different, but it's the same world he's building off of, right? And like,
No, it's the witch. This is
so
the
she's
witch
the
with the
wicked.
burlesque.
She's
She's
the
the one that
wicked
gets melted
witch.
in the end. So Wicked, the
Okay.
movie starts off
She
with
doesn't get melted.
I'm melting.
she
That's not her.
does.
She faked it.
Oh,
Spoiler
I don't.
alert.
Okay, I don't know the end.
No,
Have
I'm
you heard
talking
the
about in the
story? Yeah,
Wizard of Oz. I'm talking about in the Wizard of Oz. Is that not what we're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah. In the
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz, she's the one that gets melted. So
Yeah,
this is
she
both me
melts.
and Rebecca having a conversation that we haven't seen the actual end of Wicked yet
Sorry,
because
I thought it would be in the book. I haven't read the book, and I'm just like, no. The
I
whole
only read
thing
the
is that
first
she
half.
doesn't get melted.
Yeah, no, I only read
Oops.
the first half of the book. I'm actually glad to know this, although whoops, spoiler alert, but Wicked has been
I
out
was
for a
gonna
while.
put a spoiler alert in the thing anyway.
I mean, at this
Yeah.
point, if you haven't seen Wicked, it's been out since 2006 or
It's
whatever.
yeah. Basically, it Glinda convinces
Spoiler
her to
alert.
fake her death.
It's about racism? I don't know.
Yeah, Glinda
No,
convinces her to fake her death so that she can run away. Um,
Uh,
so, and the rumor had already started that she's so evil, water could melt her, which is ridiculous. But since people believed it, she was like, let's just use that, and I'll tell this Kansas girl to pour water
so
on you.
he's talking about some stuff. So he's like actually what you just saw in that movie all those years ago. Different now.
mhm. People need to do that when they carry on stories. Um, this is
The
why bring up
confidence of a
another.
white man. The wah, and then millions of dollars.
Yep.
He just was like, it's different actually in that other movie. You just
Bring up
surprise.
to
You
bring
got to
up
see this
other
one though.
problematic yeah to bring up other problematic white author. This is why J.K. Rowling said she was going to have Harry die in the end so that nobody could continue on with it. But apparently, even if you have them die in the end, people can do things.
That's
So
funny because that other white friend I was talking about, she just did a deep dive on Harry Potter because this is what I. So just like she has to see race and everything now too because I can't help myself, and especially with white friends, I'm like, so what else in because I never know, but so she goes deep into the characters and some of the messages in J.K. Rowling stuff, and it's like, what man said okay to this because they must have been working together. Um, and it's actually very popular. She's on YouTube. Her name is Caroline. But
Mhm.
it's I like that I can see the impression I'm making on white women in the world because they just go about. But it's like enjoy your thing, and now in this new way. Because you loved Harry Potter, and now it's like let's look at it through this lens. And
yeah, and
a
this
lot of
is
it.
probably a good place for us to wrap this episode on is art is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. Art is supposed to keep you up
Well,
at night. It's supposed to be weird, right? It's supposed to be all these different things. And again, this is the first thing you learn on the first day of literature school. They call it death of the author. And I have learned this very much as someone that puts a book out, where it's yes, I, as a human being, wrote something and I had biases and I had intentions. However, the book stands alone.
mm-hmm.
They teach you another version of this as an intelligence officer is your slides have to stand alone. So they have to be really good, even if you
Oh,
can't explain all of them. I
the
know
slides.
PowerPoint and whiteness could be a whole nother discussion that we
Oh my gosh. Because I know we've done that. I know we've talked about that. But power. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes.
um,
Sorry. My brain
but
just.
on maybe a slightly funnier note, I have now had enough people comparing me to Miss Frizzle. So first of all, I always want millennials to know, I have no
That's
connotation
great.
to that because I didn't grow up
That's
here, but I
great.
know that millennials love it. So then I always love to tell them that, well, I've seen Magic School Bus Returns because I own an 8-year-old. And in that, she has gone and gotten her PhD and she is Dr. Frizzle and her niece is the new Magic School Bus teacher. So, anyways,
Oh,
all that to say, we are starting a petition to have the live action Magic School Bus and have me play Miss Frizzle.
that's so cute. Someone once told me on a live that I am a blend between Maya Angelou and Miss Frizzle.
Oh, I love
And I'll
that.
never get over it. I think it's the best thing I've ever heard. Like, Maya Angelou and Miss Frizzle.
That is the best.
Yes, I'll take
Damn
it.
it. Damn it. You should play Miss Frizzle on the Magic School Bus.
I mean, and I could be on my roller. I would pull out when I was roller skating and wearing my I got some Miss Frizzle, but it was Black Miss Frizzle, of course, because you gotta throw that in there. Um, but I guess in 2025, maybe
Maybe. You never know.
maybe there's more than just one teacher that people like shoulder stuff. But I
Yeah.
think I mean remaking things isn't bad. I just think the audacity to remake something and not, you know, it is very classic. I think industry is going to industry and the institutions are what they are, and
Well, and it's a good conversation
it's
to
up to
have, right?
us.
The same way as when you make Ariel black, it is now a whole different conversation than when Ariel is a redhead, right? And
Yeah.
so that is, that's even something that's true with literature and film, right? And so Jane Austen, who was one of my faves when I was a 20-year-old studying literature, she is, because the way she writes is called the every woman way, because in a time of description in which Victor Hugo spends 77 pages describing Jean Valjean crawling through the sewers of Paris, she gives you no physical description at all. Her only physical description of Elizabeth Bennet is she has fine eyes, right? So like in theory, every woman in every time in any language can like
Mhm.
see herself as Elizabeth Bennet. Of course, it's still a white book written by a white woman in whiteness.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as soon as you put that in film, you put a face to it, right? So it's like
Right.
film has decided that Elizabeth Bennet is a brunette and Jane is a blonde. Like that doesn't actually show up in the thing. And then you have Bridgerton, right? And you have people going, oh my gosh, why are they rewriting it with blackness in it? And it's like, to me, it's partially like, okay, new topic of conversation, right? Like, we
Yeah.
know the old way. We can go discuss the written Pride and Prejudice every time. But how about discussing the fact that we only see this as a white person? I just think that
Yeah.
always like having the discussions that come out of it are worth it as well. Like, to me, that makes art richer.
Mhm. And what's the value of writing? There is some value to writing in every woman, but you don't have to write in every woman. And I think that became what kind of whiteness expected, right? Like if you're going to write a book, it has to make sense for everybody. What does middle America think? What does this, does everyone see themselves in this? And the selling aspect of it, and who's buying. I'm not selling to kids, I'm selling to adults, and that changes everything. Instead of really saying, well, only a black woman can write a black woman's story. And if she's a black woman, that's okay that only some people, that not going bigger, always everyone is the only way to go. It's okay that not everything is for everyone. I see that a lot in whiteness of people going like, I just don't get why, similar to, why do you care about this? Why do you think everything's a cult? I just don't get, I'm uncomfortable. That's because whiteness and privilege doesn't have to reckon with a lot of that emotional discomfort that other people have to reckon with in order to deal
Yeah.
with other people when they're feeling uncomfortable to keep it in. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but
I also think
it's
the flip side for us as like white women, and for me as a mother of a white girl, it's like also teaching my daughter that she can relate to a story written by a black woman for black girls in the
yeah.
same way that her black friends dress up as Elsa, like you can enjoy a story about someone that you can't imagine as you. You can still be in
Because it's
that
often not
in that
about blackness. Yeah, often it's just a little black girl, and there are hints of her blackness in the character, but like she's just a little girl and she's gonna have regular stories. If it's not about slavery, then or about, because hopefully in the future there'll be less about the traumas and the differences and more about the communities and the like bringing all of you and then being open to all of somebody else, because
yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of boxes. So
My kid ending on an adorable children's book. There's a children's book written by a black woman called My Bedtime Bonnet, and it was my daughter's favorite book for years. And it was just a black family and a black girl like looking for her bonnet at bedtime. And it was like you said, like it was very black, It was a very
Mm-hmm.
black book. It
Mm-hmm.
was very obvious. However, my 4-year-old little white girl loved it. She has a
She
bedtime
can follow
routine.
the story.
She has a family. She has a getting up in the morning routine, right? And so it's just that easy
Exactly.
as being like,
Yep.
you don't have to do this, but you
This is
know,
another girl doing her thing. Oh, interesting. Like it's literally just meeting a new person. I love that. That's so cute. And that's like just showing people in the wild and making it interesting and not like it everything has to be you. You don't even have to relate. You can
yeah.
just interest. You can just be curious.
Also, I'm
That's
really
so
ready
cute.
for a Broadway musical by a black woman. So I hope
I'm ready for so
they're
many. Oh my
doing
god, it
that.
would be so but she'd have to argue too many people. But we'll get there. I think we're close.
We'll get there. More, more and more, as more stuff starts. What was it? There was this very interesting, there was a documentary about inequality in Hollywood. And Gina Davis has a company all about exposing this and whatnot.
Oh.
Anyway, she talked about there was an interview with like a director, and it was like something on Fox, but not like it was like the scripted version or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
the director, they had data come back that say it was super not equal, and so the director was like, "Fine, 50% of shows we pick up are going to be written by women." Right. And whatever, and he just like made percentages. And he's like, and you know what? It was great. We won awards. We didn't have to compromise quality, right? Like all of that stuff is
Yeah.
just assumed, right? Like no one was sitting in the room where my bedtime bonnet was being pitched saying that white Daniela Young's 4-year-old daughter like is the client for this,
Right.
right? So there's so much of that where it's like I was reading some book and she was like, the solution to changing it is just change it. Like just do it.
Change it.
Just buy the books from black women, buy the Broadway musicals, go watch them, even if you think you're not going to relate. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like if a piece of art is well done, this is what I've learned being told that I had such extreme stories that nobody could relate to. I'm like, you know what? If the art is
Mm-hmm.
well done, people can relate. Humans have human emotions, right? Like all of the
Mm-hmm.
differences, all of the demographics, like those are social constructs. So like if we're just telling good stories, we can relate to each other.
I
Um,
mean, look at our pages, right? And there are people like not in the demographic necessarily that is we designed our audience for. I'm White Woman Whisperer, knowing that like I'm talking to everybody. I'm doing it for black women. Black women follow me like crazy. Men follow me, but they understand and I understand that if they get it in it, if it's good, if it speaks to you, I don't need to change my name in order for that to be true. It's just I'm gonna just go. I'm just gonna start and join or don't or whatever, but let's just do something that feels right and trust it. But whiteness won't tell you that because they don't really have
I
anything. It's
was
just like
told
the anti.
I was told men would never read my book. And now that I sell so many autographs, I'm like 25%. 25% of my audience on social media is men. And it's not for them necessarily, but they learn a lot from it. And it's great because, again, you can learn from other people's perspectives, and I think that's what
They just trying to
we're
be psychic based on past information that is already biased based in past information. Like how many we've never this is unheard of. We've never done this. Shut up.
the selling of art. The selling of art in the traditional process, it is exactly like the reason I have a book is because I realized it was venture capital and they only make decisions based on what has gone before, which makes it actually challenging when you have a very big, unique story because they're like, well, nobody's ever done anything before this. So, like, how do you
Yeah.
know? Right. And then one goes really big, and all of a sudden now it's like, oh my gosh, we need more stories about this. Right. And so
Yeah.
that
That's
but
very
from the
American.
artist side, what I want to encourage people with is like now is the time that people are giving those chances to other voices, right? That it's like
Mm.
finally breaking through. Now, as we go into more oppression, is the time to be making art, right? And like you
Yes. Connect with
going back to
you
what
and
we
yourself. Yeah.
started with, color is a form of resistance, right? So like um
Yes.
keep all of that in mind, everybody. And please follow Rebecca on her Patreon. Her takes are
Yes, and thank
always
you.
interesting and informative and will only hurt your feelings sometimes. Uh,
Yeah, and and please don't get mad at me for my wicked take. My wicked take on wicked. That's wicked. All right.
the wicked take on wicked. There you go. That's maybe what we call this
Love
episode.
it.
No, we love you, Rebecca. You always give us more stuff to think about. Thank you so much for this conversation, and Haley, you
Thanks.
too. Um, I'm looking forward to watching this 5 more times and
Yeah.
all of the different thoughts I'm going to
This
think.
may actually make me go see it. Like I feel like I did this part, so I'm like, okay, I did something, and I can just watch this and be normal. I'm lying. I'm lying already. I'll need a notebook. I'm
Well,
and then
maybe after you watch it, we can do like an undoctrinating wicked take or
oh,
something.
indoctrinated right there. Ooh, I'm excited. I'm
All
excited.
right. Friends. Thank you so much, everybody. Please like and follow our podcast as we are deconstructing white supremacy like the cult that it is. I am Knitting Cult Lady together with Rebecca, the White Woman Whisperer,
Whoop, whoop.
and Haley, our producer. Thanks for hanging out.